If you have your Bibles, join me in turning to the book of Genesis, first book in the Bible, Genesis chapter 18. I'll pass on to you. Doug Welch was actually in the hospital this week. Had some difficulty. His electrolyte levels were low and a variety of other issues, but he is back home again. But as you think about Doug, keep him in your prayers. We have been going through the book of Genesis, looking at the life of Abraham. He's one of the men that we think of as the great heroes of the faith. But as we've looked at his life, we see that Abraham is a man just like us. He is he knows he's called to live by faith, but he's often troubled by fear and insecurity. He has family tension, marital strife. He's an ordinary man. We often place him up on a pedestal and say, "Oh, Abraham's such a great man." But we learn from his example. He sets a positive example for us of things we should do. Negative examples of things we want to avoid. And as we look at his life, week after week, sometimes we have these lofty ideas about faith and living out faith. Today we're going to actually talk about something very simple in his life. We're going to, as they say, put the cookies down on the lower shelf. You know, when Mom bakes cookies, she doesn't want the kids to have them. So she puts them way up high to cool so the kids can't get them when they're coming around. When Grandma bakes cookies, she puts them down low so every time they come by, they can grab a cookie. So we're going to talk about something very simple today. When you talk about Abraham's life, last week we talked about circumcision. And the idea, no, it's not a physical circumcision we need, it's a circumcision of our heart. Say, wow, what's that all talking about? There's some hard things. That's the cookies on the top shelf. Today we're going to talk about hospitality. That's the cookies on the lower shelf. And something that each one of us here can say, oh, wow, I can see how I can do that. And I can see how that applies to me. And we want to think about two ways that we think about hospitality. Number one, as a church. How do we show hospitality as a church? But then secondly, how do we show hospitality as an individual in our home, in our places of work, in our families? So as we think about hospitality, think about a twofold approach to hospitality. Hospitality is defined as the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers. Perfect example of this, you think about going to Walmart. You need to pick up a few groceries and you walk into Walmart and there is a greeter at the door. Welcome to Walmart! Welcome to Walmart! You know, if you have kids with you, they even pull out a little smiley sticker and give it to each of the kids. Is there anything I can help you with? Anything you need? Because Sam Walton learned that when people are welcomed and greeted, they're going to feel good about shopping there and they're going to want to go back. Some people go back to Walmart not because they agree with their pricing strategies, they just want somebody to greet them when they come in the door. Think about the opposite extreme of hospitality. A mother had invited some people over for dinner. And as they're all seated around the table, she turned to her 6-year-old daughter and said, "Would you like to say the blessing?" Surprised, the little girl said, "Well, I wouldn't know what to say." Her mother said, "Well, just say what you hear Mommy say when Mommy talks to God." So the little girl bowed her head and with very sincere voice said, "Dear Lord, why did I invite all these people over for dinner?" That's the opposite of hospitality. Chances are each one of us probably fits somewhere in between the two. But this morning we want to look at the example of Abraham and use his example of hospitality as an example of how we should show hospitality. So we find this example here in Genesis 18. I'm reading out of the New International Version. If you have a different version, the words may be just a little bit different. I'm starting to read in verse 1. It says, "The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, If I found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat, so that you can be refreshed and then go on your way, now that you've come to your servant. Very well, he answered. Do as you say. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. Quick, he said, get 3 seahs of fine flour and knead it and bake some bread. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice tender calf and gave it to his servant, who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. And we'll stop there. The story goes on, and most of us are familiar with the story. This is the Lord appearing to Abram. He actually gives him a promise that Sarah is going to be bearing a son. He talks about going on to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. But that's the rest of the story. For today, we're looking at the first 8 verses. And so let's pray together as we consider those verses. Lord, we've just read your word. Your word is truth. And we understand your word is profitable for us to gain instruction. And so, Lord, we pray that you would open our eyes to see how this example of Abraham might apply to us. Help us to learn from his example and help us to do a better job of showing hospitality to others. Encourage us and help us to see your truth today. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. When we look at the example of Abraham and think about hospitality, the first thing we see is recognition. We need to learn to recognize visitors. Now notice what verse 1 tells us. It tells us that it is in the heat of the day in the Middle East. Sometimes it's easy for us in Michigan to say, oh yeah, it was probably 1 o'clock, probably 80 degrees out. In the Middle East, chances are it's a scorcher. It's probably 105, 110 degrees. It's so hot that Abraham has come out of his tent and he's got a little flap sticking out. He's on the shade underneath this flap, trying to catch a breeze. When you are hot, you get miserable. You don't feel like doing anything. I won't mention names of anyone I personally am married to because I wouldn't want to embarrass them. I'll just say I know some people very well who get very cranky when it's hot. Abraham, sitting here under the flap of his tent, he's got his sun tea in his hand, wondering why they haven't invented the ice maker yet, and he looks up and he sees 3 men. If he would be like a lot of us, he'd sweep back inside the tent quick so they could pass right by so he doesn't have to do anything. That's not Abraham. When he sees them, he sees this as an opportunity to provide hospitality. Hospitality is part of the Semitic culture. It's something that is ingrained in them. When you have an opportunity, take it. So even though it's a hot day, he's probably feeling miserable. How can I get some relief? When he sees these visitors, he sees it as an opportunity, a God-given opportunity to show hospitality. Sometimes the last thing we want to do when we're uncomfortable is to talk to somebody, to minister to somebody, to spend time meeting their needs. Many times we miss opportunities for hospitality because we're so focused on ourselves. We're just thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about our schedule. We think, boy, I sure hope nobody comes over during my show because I don't want to miss my show. Phone rings and they think, well, who is it? Oh, no, they're going to talk too long. I don't have time to talk to them. And many times we miss opportunities to bless others because we're thinking about number one, because we think about ourselves. On a very basic level, hospitality is not just the idea of giving a meal. Very simple, something every one of us can do. When's the last time you held the door for someone? You say, well, say I'll hold the door for me. When's the last time, as a courtesy to somebody else, said, let me get the door for you? When's the last time you saw somebody carrying a load of packages and say, hey, let me help you carry this? It used to be part of our culture. We naturally did it. Not anymore. Not anymore. When's the last time you said thank you to someone who served you? Maybe a cashier at the grocery store. Maybe a bank teller. We think, well, it's their job to do that. But if we really want to seek to bless others, we can extend our thanks. Maybe go beyond just saying thank you. Say, I really appreciate you taking the time to help me out and wait on me today. Think, whoa, my, that would be totally out of character for me. Maybe it would be good for us to step out of character so that we can be that blessing to others. When's the last time you got to a parking lot and went to pull into a parking spot and you said, well, I'm going to let someone else have that spot. I'll park somewhere else. We are often so focused on ourselves that we miss opportunities to show hospitality. And sometimes it means we need to step out of our comfort zones to do that. Some of us are not people persons. We don't naturally bubble over and want to talk to other people. Some of us are very quiet. We'd rather just sit there and say 5 words all day long. And so it's a stretch to talk to others. And this whole idea of kindness can come very hard. I will admit that being kind is not one of my strongest gifts. I try to be kind, but it's not something I am just a naturally kind person. The other week, I was going down to Kroger. I'd run in and get some groceries. And I see a car backing out of the spot, so I'm coming around and pulling the spot. And it pulls out and it goes, and I'm getting ready to pull in. And here comes this other car coming the other way, honking his horn. And some lady says, I want to get in that spot. And it was not my first nature. We'll go right ahead, man. And I pulled off and around and found another spot. And what was really irritating is this idea, it's not like she'd just been sitting there getting into the spot. I pulled up when she pulled up. I was by right. I was there first. I could get that spot. But I chose to move on and take another spot. Hospitality doesn't always come easy to us because we'd rather do something else. I don't want to have people over. They just have to clean the house, And we think of all the things we're going to have to do if we're going to show hospitality to others. It's not as though we think, oh, I sure hope I get the chance to serve somebody today, to give something away, disrupt my schedule, and accommodate somebody else. It doesn't come naturally to us. We don't normally think about it. But hospitality is something that we're called to do. Not just because Abraham did it, and it's an example of Abraham, but the Scripture clearly commands us, calls us to show hospitality. In the New Testament, the book of 1 Peter, chapter 4, verse 8, gives us this calling. It says, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. So we are called to show hospitality, show it to one another, and not to grumble when we do it. Sometimes we say, okay, I'll show hospitality, but I'm going to let them know how much I had to change. We know I changed my schedule today so I could help them. We don't feel very blessed when somebody is helping us and complaining the whole time they're helping us. The Bible says, and I can't quote this right, in the book of Proverbs, it talks about the idea that somebody's giving you a nice meal, but talking about the cost the whole time, how much it's costing for this meal. Might as well just put a knife to your throat. Don't even bother going there because it's not going to bless you. When we show hospitality, we want to think about others. Sunday morning when you come into the worship service, do you think about yourself? Sure hope nobody's sitting in my seat. I always sit in that same spot. I won't look around so I don't see. But I wonder if my friends are going to be here today. I sure hope they sing the songs I like. So many times when we come into worship, we think about ourselves. Or you take notice of others. Oh, I see somebody's visiting with us today. I'll look up and say hi and introduce myself. We think, well, so-and-so looks a little bit down today. I wonder if something's wrong. I want to go to him. Or I've been praying for so-and-so. I'm going to let him know I've been praying for him this week. Two very different approaches to worship. One comes in with the consumer mentality. Me, me, me. The other comes and says, I want to worship, but my brothers and sisters are here. How can I bless my brothers and sisters as they worship together with me? So as we think about hospitality, the first R is recognition. To see the open doors that God gives to us every day. Because the truth is that God will give us open doors. And sometimes somebody comes to your mind, maybe you know somebody who's been having a problem, having a need, and you think about them, and you say, oh, I wonder why I thought about them. Instead of looking at it and recognizing, maybe I need to stop and pray for them. Maybe I should pick up the phone and give them a call. Maybe I should invite them over tonight for some dinner or some dessert. And many times, God intentionally leads us in a certain way because there's an open door here and we miss it. Because we fail to recognize opportunities of hospitality. The second R of hospitality is rush. Notice what verse 2 says. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them. Later on in this passage, down in verse 6, so Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. Quick, he said. And he goes on, then he ran to the herd, selected a choice tender calf, and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. You get the idea reading this, that there is a sense of urgency in Abraham's hospitality. It's the heat of the day. It's a scorcher. Probably the last thing Abraham wants to do is to hurry, get all sweaty, and then he's going to be all stinky, and it's going to be a mess. He's going to have to go back in and change his robe and come out. But he hurries so that he can offer hospitality. Why all the hurry? Is it because the travelers wouldn't wait because they're dying of hunger? I don't believe so. Rather, I believe it's because Abraham wants to honor them. He wants to give them special honor, and so he doesn't want it to be the least bit inconvenient for them. Because he is considering them before himself. He is showing his guests that they are important to him. When we show honor to others, when we show hospitality, we want to honor others and let them know that they're important. Valentine's Day, I ordered takeout from Applebee's. I called up. They said the order will be ready in 25 minutes. So I went down there. I even gave them a few extra minutes. I was there after like 30 minutes. And so the order should have been ready. And they have this car-side pickup. You pull up your car, and they come right out, greet you, take your money, give you your food, and you're on your way. Normally it works great. But that day I pull up at when I'm supposed to be there. It didn't bother me having to wait for the food to be prepared. But when I got there and sat there in the car, when I'm supposed to be there, it's 10 minutes until anybody walks out the side door. After 10 minutes they come out and they take my money, go back inside. It's another 10 minutes until they come out with my change. And then after that, I mean, it ends up being almost an hour after order, sitting there about half an hour until I actually get my food. Didn't get my order right. And food's cold by that time. You get home and you have to reheat it up in the microwave because it was cold when I got it, even colder until you get it home. And needless to say, I did not feel any honor from Applebee's. I didn't feel as a customer they were seeking to honor me, seeking to bless me, seeking to provide. Basically, I felt I was an afterthought. When we show hospitality, we don't want our guests to feel that we're an afterthought. Oh, yeah, I was planning on going shopping, and, well, I couldn't get out, so I thought I'd invite you over. You know, sometimes we give that impression to others. You're my second choice. I really didn't want to spend time with you, but didn't have anything else I could do, so I thought I'd invite you over. No, this idea of rush is the idea of showing special honor as we give hospitality. Letting others know that they are important. When a visitor comes in, when you come in on a Sunday morning, you see a visitor walk in, introduce yourself. As they're trying to find a seat, offer to sit with them. Hey, well, why don't you come over here and sit with me this morning? Take some time. If somebody's coming and wants to sit in the middle of the row, don't grimace your face as you're pulling your feet back so they can get by. Say, well, here, let me slip over so that it's easy for you. Or stand up and get out and say, well, here, let me get up so you can get in easy. But showing honor to others, letting them know that they're important. Abraham rushes because he wants to give the special honor to his guests. The third R is respect. Notice what verse 2 tells us about Abraham greeting these guests. It says, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. As we read this text, we know that this is God. This is the Lord himself. And probably two angels who've come down to bring God's wrath on Sodom. But it tells us that Abraham looked up and saw three men. Really, from the text, it doesn't seem like Abraham knows this is God coming to talk to him. Rather, he thinks it's just three ordinary men. In verse 3, he says, if I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. But when he says my Lord, it's not the capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, which refers to God. Rather, this is a term of respect. It'd be much more like he's saying, sir. He's saying, sirs, please let me serve you. Let me be your servant. He is showing respect to them, to serve them. And whether we like it or not, that's what we are called to as Christians, is to be servants. Remember the story of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. It wasn't something he did just because it needed to be done. He did it to teach a lesson. In the passage in John 13, Jesus said, now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Jesus says to his disciples, look here, if I'm the Lord and I can serve you, then you should be able to serve one another. Mark 10:45 tells us about Jesus. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. The God of all creation, who deserved to be served by everyone, chose to be the servant. And so when it comes to showing hospitality, do we do it out of a desire to serve others? We don't do it for a desire to get something from others. Well, I'm going to invite my boss over, so maybe he'll consider me when it's time to get a raise. No. We don't show hospitality out of selfish motives. We do it as a way of serving others. Sometimes we do it with this mentality, well, I'll invite them over because then they'll invite me back over. And this bartering back and forth. Sometimes we show our lack of hospitality, our selfish motives by the way we interact with others. When we greet people, whether on a Sunday morning, wherever you're at, you walk up and say, hi, how are you? You really don't want them to tell you how they're doing. You want them to say, fine, so that you can turn on and go your own way. Because, sadly, many times we don't care how people are. And I'd encourage you, if you really do care, next time somebody says, fine, probe a little further. Well, what was the best thing about your week? Or what was the low point of your week? Ask a little further to find out how they really are. To show that we really do care. It's a way of showing respect to others, letting them know that they're important, letting them know that we care about them. So hospitality involves recognition. Identifying opportunities that God gives us. Rush, that we know that we want to honor others and respect, considering them highly. The fourth R is rest and refreshment. R&R. Verse 4. Abraham says, let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Think about this culture. It is hot. It is stinking hot. It's so hot that you get sweaty, you get stinky. That's where the expression stinking hot comes from. They've got sandals on their feet, which first of all get grains of sand underneath in between the sandal, and it's rubbing their feet, and their feet get sore. Their feet are exposed to stepping into all types of stuff all over the place. And so their feet get sore and filthy. Washing the feet of these travelers was not just something that would clean their feet, but it provided great refreshment for these travelers as well. If there is something Rhonda enjoys, it's a good foot rub. You know, wants me to get lotion out and rub her feet because it refreshes her. It helps all the problems and worries to go away. You relax. And you know, when I do, those coins just start filling up in her love bank for me. Do we seek to provide that refreshment of others? Sometimes when we show hospitality, we are in such a hurry, in such a rush, get people in, get them out, get them fed, that they don't really enjoy it because the whole setting is so tense. Sometimes the best hospitality is where you've got some cheese and crackers, and you just sit around and relax and talk. Something a generation ago the culture knew how to do. You sit out in the rocking chairs in the front porch and talk. Just catch up. Find out about what's going on. And just share your heart with your neighbor. Sometimes, as we think about hospitality, we get so caught up on the things. What would I serve them? And what would we have to drink? And what kind of dessert would we have? Instead of thinking about refreshment. How do we refresh somebody? How do we encourage them? How do I help to take their burdens away? Abraham wants to get water to wash their feet. Foot washing is something we don't have to do in our culture today. I mean, chances are when guests come over, you don't say, let me wash your feet for you. But the question is, what can we do to relax and refresh our guests? How can we help to lighten their burdens? What can we do to make them feel at ease? So they can just feel comfortable to share whatever's on their heart. Sometimes we say, well, you know, I'm not really there to help them. I don't want to hear their burdens. I just want to give them a meal. We miss then what hospitality is all about. Hospitality is not about serving a meal to somebody. It's about refreshing them. It's about blessing them. It's about building a bond so that we can minister to them. The meal is just the vehicle. The meal is just the opportunity so that we can share with them. Galatians 6 tells us, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. This idea that not only are we to give somebody a meal, but we're to help them bear their burdens, the things they're struggling with, we should struggle with as well. When somebody has a need, we want to pray for them. Hebrews tells us, pray for those who are in bonds, in prison, as though you were in prison with them. We want to help share one another's burdens. Ecclesiastes 4 says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him. So as we think about hospitality, this idea of rest and refreshment, it's not just how can I fill their bellies, but how can I fill their souls? How can I make their problems and worries less? How can I increase their faith? How can I bless and encourage their heart? And as part of this, notice what Abraham offers. He gives the best seat. Verse 4. He says, let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. So Abraham has gotten up from under his tent flap. He's greeted his guests, and he has them all come over and sit under the shade of a tree. Say, well, why didn't he get under the tent flap? Well, it wouldn't have been room for all of them under the tent flap. But he finds the best spot to entertain his guests. When we went through a video in Sunday school and Sunday nights about the desert experiences, we talked about acacia trees. You go out into the wilderness, out in the desert, everything is dry and rocky and sandy, but there's these acacia trees that spring up. And when it's 120 degrees out, it's still going to be hot under the tree, but the temperature is significantly lower. So Abraham takes them away under the cooler seat of the trees where they're going to be much more comfortable. Whenever you go to people's houses, you know, Dad always has a chair. That's Dad's chair. He always sits in it. That easy chair is formed to his body. Nobody sits in Dad's chair. And chances are there's a pecking order where everybody else sits. When we show hospitality, we want our guests to have the best seats. Don't say, sit over there. Say, sit wherever you like. My home is your home. Make yourself at home. You say, you know, you want another soda? Feel free to help yourself. The fridge is over here. In fact, let me get it for you. Anything you like. Where we let our guests feel at home that they are the guest of honor. Anything they want, we're there to help provide. Notice he gives also the best food. Verse 5 it says, let me get you something to eat. Let me fix a little something for you. And we think he's going to have this little spread here, you know, some cheese and crackers for him. No. Just the opposite. And we miss that because we're not familiar with weights and measures of the Bible. But Abraham says, get 3 seahs of fine flour. Fine doesn't mean how small it's crushed, but he's saying, bring out the good flour. Bring out the bread flour. You know, our flour is all pretty much, we have bread flours when we go to the store, but pretty much our flour is the same. But think about something different in our culture. Get out the Starbucks coffee. None of that cheap, generic Kroger coffee. Bring out the good stuff. These are guests. Bring out the good stuff. I went once visiting some friends of ours, and he was really into coffee. And so he goes to his freezer. He's got it in the freezer and brings out the beans, and he grinds them up fresh for us. Because this was a big event, you know, and he wanted to let us know that we're special guests. He's bringing out the private stock for us. Then it says, there's 3 seahs of fine flour. Think, okay, yeah, they took 3 cups of flour. No, actually 3 seahs would have been about 20 quarts, about 5 gallons of flour. Imagine how many dinner rolls you could make with 5 gallons of flour. Definitely enough to feed 3 people. He is going way overboard, very extravagant in how he provides for his guests. And then he prepares a choice tender calf. He's not giving them a pan steak that you have to marinate in Italian dressing all night long just so it's not tough enough to eat. He's bringing out filet mignon. He's bringing out the best cuts for his guests. He wants a steak that is thick and juicy. It doesn't need to be lathered in ketchup or A1. Boy, you don't want anything on it because it tastes so good. I remember the best steak I ever ate. We're on our honeymoon down in the British Virgin Islands. It was a black Angus steak. It had hollandaise sauce on. And oh, that created a lasting memory. To this day, I have never eaten a better steak than that steak. Abraham is not just giving them a snack. He's not just putting on a feast. He is creating a memory, a lasting memory. And actually, I don't remember what all I put on pictures up here. Is there a picture of a man at a table on there anywhere, Jeff? On PowerPoint? Did I put that in here or not?
Nope.
No? Okay. When I was in North Carolina, youth pastor for a couple years in North Carolina, I stayed with different families, and there was one family, Tom and Eloise Tiles. And you know, after church in the evening, they say, come on over for a little snack. But their snack was a great big table, too. That's what Abraham does. He's not just providing a little bit for them to eat. He is putting on a feast. He is creating a lasting memory for these men. Our hospitality is not designed just to meet a physical need. will they look hungry? I'll invite them over. No, it is creating a way for us to impact their lives. It says he also brings some curds and milk. Now, if you've ever eaten at a Culver's restaurant and had their cheese curds, well, that brings a memory to your heart. Cheese curds are wonderful. Oh, my. If you haven't, you need to drive up to Saginaw or over to Lansing to go to a Culver's just to try their cheese curds. They are amazing. But these curds here probably refers to a bowl of yogurt. He's pulling out yogurt. He's pulling out milk. Chances are there was probably a big pit they had dug down in the ground and kept this down here so it's cold. So here on this blazing hot day, he says, go down and get the good stuff that's nice and cool. And pull out this cold yogurt and this fresh, cold milk. What a way to bless these travelers. So, here on this blazing hot afternoon, they've got all this lamb mignon, the delmonico steaks. They've got tons and tons of baked rolls. They've never eaten them all. They've got this cold milk, this yogurt. Abraham is bringing them the best. Another idea tied in with this is that not only is he providing them a meal, he's actually restocking their supplies. After they eat all they want, he probably packs it all up and says, here, you're ready for the journey. Take it with you. Take it and go. He's giving them doggy bags of leftovers to take on the way. He wasn't thinking about them just today at this moment. He's thinking, I want to make sure they have something for tomorrow and for the next day as they go on down the road. We want to think, how can we really refresh others when we show hospitality? And then the final R is resource or responsibility. Pick whichever one you like. Resource or responsibility. Notice what Abraham does after they're served. Verse 8. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. What in the world was that? It was Abraham's home. He had servants all around. Remember, when Lot is taken captive, he takes 318 of his trained servants who are ready for war, and he goes out. He's got hundreds of servants. But when the meal is served, what does Abraham do? He stands there ready to serve his guests personally. He personally takes care of their needs. He makes sure they have everything they need. He assumes the role of a servant. He is a great patriarch. He's a great land and wealthy man. All these servants, but he personally makes sure that they have what they need. Sometimes we fail in hospitality in that we might provide a meal or some form of refreshing, but we don't follow up to make sure our guests are doing well and having everything they need. But one of the biggest areas where we can fail is that we just don't do hospitality. We can think about all these things and say, oh yeah, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. Truth is that every one of us here today can show hospitality to somebody. We can all be aware of needs. We can all seek to refresh and bless others. But sometimes we just don't. We get so caught up in ourselves. And we think, oh, wouldn't it be great if somebody would show me hospitality? Instead, my desire today is that each one of us would say, God, please use me to show hospitality to somebody else. God, give me an opportunity this week to bless and refresh and to be there to serve somebody else, to help carry their burden, to lessen their load, to encourage them in their faith. God, give me an opportunity this week. Each one of us can. May God help us, like Abraham, to see those opportunities, to recognize the opportunities when they come, to rush, to take action. Not to just say, well, yeah, I'll do something for so-and-so. I'll get to it one of these days. And say, no, I want to do it today. While they're on my mind, while God has brought it to my mind, I want to do it. I want to honor them. I want to respect them. I want to refresh. I want to bless them. I want to carry the load with them. May God lay on our hearts the people He wants us to show hospitality to. Let's pray. Father, thank you for the way that you have given us in Abraham this beautiful, wonderful example of hospitality. Lord, it's wonderful to think that you, the God of all creation, choose to use us to be the form of blessing others. So, Lord, give us a willing heart to be used by you this week. We pray in Christ's name.